Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you for having this hearing and allowing us to express our opinions. I can't believe it either, Senator Sudnowski, that we're still talking about this in 2018, because I've been talking about it since 1978. And this year marks 40 years that I've been talking about it. And it's not any better now in some ways than it was when we first started talking. This is a very personal issue when we talk about reproductive freedom, and that was the whole driving force of Roe. For the first time, the Supreme Court decided that it needed to talk about the right of privacy. And so it's always very difficult to talk about, because we keep bringing it back to the floors of state houses across this country. And frankly, I don't care what they're doing in Texas, West Virginia, Louisiana, and Mississippi. I'm worried about what's happening right here in what I hope is a more enlightened part of the world that has worked very hard over the last 2,000 years to get women to the places where they are. I want to tell you a personal story that will give you some insight into how strongly I feel about this if you needed more evidence. The new building of Planned Parenthood of Southeastern New England, which, as the representative of the diocese said a few minutes ago, is in fact based in Planned Parenthood of Connecticut. It represents both states. That was part of mergers that went on across the country. We used to have 250 affiliates, and it became not cost effective to do it that way. At a certain point when they were moving into the new building, I got a call from someone who said, Planned Parenthood is looking at a building that I have an interest in, and I'd like very much for them to have this building because I think it would be perfect for them. But I told them that if they bought the building, I would give them a big amount of money, 6 figures off the selling price, but they had to name it after you. So I started to cry. That was my first reaction. And I said, well, that's such a beautiful tribute, but that doesn't happen. And he said, why? And I said, because the name on the building goes to the guy that gives $2 million to the capital campaign and then gives them $750,000 a year for maintenance of the building. And then when he dies, he leaves them $50 million. I don't have that. And if my successor is doing her job, which she is better than I did it, she knows that. So although I appreciate this, and it's a wonderful tribute, and I will never forget this gesture of friendship, that shouldn't happen. So this is a person who's doesn't easily have their mind changed. He's a big businessman, but he said, okay. So then about 6 months later, he called me and he said, well, they're moving into the building, and so now I want to know if you could have anything inside the building named after you, what would it be? Now, naming opportunities in hospitals and buildings like this cost tens of thousands of dollars. The person who wants to put the name on it has to give a lot of money to get the name up there. So I said, well, that's easy, so-and-so. I didn't go through and put my family through everything that we went through to have my name on the door of the room where they fit women for diaphragms. So I want my name on the wall where it says abortion clinic. Because I'm not ashamed to have my name there. And that's what's wrong. We have to stop this. We've been talking about this for 2,000 years. And a lot of the testimony from my opposition talks about the voice of the voiceless unborn. And I like to say, I'm here for the voiceless billions of women and the men who love them, who for 2,000 years have worked, sometimes with their lives, paid for the rights that we finally have. So now some of the leadership in this country, someone's already addressed the president's position on women and sexual assault. Keep trying to tell us we have nothing to worry about. Roe is the law of the land. How long for? We don't know. And just recently, we have to worry about Rhode Island. Just recently, a member of the leadership said in print, I don't like to talk about abortion. We really don't like to talk about abortion in the State House because it takes up all the oxygen in the room. So I delivered to Mr. Mattiello's office today a gift certificate for some oxygen, because I don't want him to run out of oxygen when he talks about women's health care. And I noticed that he didn't run out of oxygen talking about the stadium. So what does this tell us? It tells us that a bunch of guys with 3 cases of beer in the trunk who might have to drive to Worcester for a ball game are more of a priority than if a woman has to fly to another country for reproductive health care. And that can't be right. I don't think that makes sense to anyone. So we have every reason to worry, because we have been the lowest priority in this State House for too many years. And I've witnessed 40 of them. And I've witnessed the same legislators who oppose me call me when someone close to them needed me. So I'm tired of that. And I am tired of the kind of religious institutional pressure that's being put on this entire legislature. I'm tired of hearing stories privately that people are so reluctant to talk about publicly. I'm tired of worrying about the unborn when legislation that would really protect all the already born, young people, old people, when, for example, you want to pass a law doing away with statutes of limitations on sexual assault, which is a crime that, as we know, often happens in childhood, but the person can't really respond legally in court to go after the perpetrator until they're older. This is a serious matter. The same people who are the voices of the unborn are suddenly silent for the already born, for fear that some of the already born and grown and speaking from the pulpit will end up in court. That can't be right. So this is very personal, and it's very personal to me in terms of religion because of reasons that you all know. So I have done my job, and I do it willingly. And I've done it, and I will do it until the day I have the last breath to do it with. But I will not stand still for this hypocrisy any longer, and I don't think that we should. So between now and next year, if this bill doesn't fly, which it really needs to, but probably won't this year, there's an election. And that is finally the time when we can hold hands with the women of Ireland, go forward, and speak to this entire legislature in the language, which is the only language that they understand sometimes, which is, if you really want to represent us, represent the 2/3 of Rhode Islanders who favor reproductive freedom. That's your job. It's not your job to make up what you think we should believe or do. This is very personal, as I said at the beginning. And so I hope that you will recognize that personally, Rhode Islanders want you to pass 2163. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Nesselbush.